Okay, good evening, everyone, and thanks for popping in to hear about a 115-year-old murder mystery. As this came across the Historical Society's desk, it kind of took over everybody's interest, and everybody's been really involved in researching this and looking into it, and we all found it very interesting. I think it talks about a piece of town history that we don't really understand what it was like. And by that, I'm talking about Little Coney Island, the old amusement park. Today, when we talk about it, we hear a lot of myths about it and a lot of legends, but I don't think we really understand what it was to the town and how the town really viewed it. But I'm going to go ahead and get started with a PowerPoint and then kind of walking ourselves through this whole case, this whole murder, this mystery that is surrounding what happens. So I'll just share this with you guys, and we will get started. So, like I said, we're looking at a 115-year-old murder mystery, and it's the murder of a woman named Loretta Pfiefer. Now, like I said, when we talk about Little Coney Island, this is the image that usually comes to mind, right? We all see these images on Facebook and, social media sites that somebody puts up, and usually the conversation is always, oh, I wish they would have kept it in town, or I wish I would have been there, but these are just still images, and we don't really know what it was like until we started researching it. So again, just in this image, we could see a couple of different things. Starting from the far left of the image, right, where it says Coney Island Candy Kitchen, there was a ton of stands there. The piece behind it is actually a roller coaster called the Tickler. Right, we could see in the background there's a casino. That's the Villa Robinson Hotel, Saloon and Casino. We have a Ferris wheel. We have a carousel. We have a set of swings called the Razzle Dazzle, which are going to come up in one of the articles in a second. But this is what we see, and we think that, oh, it's an amusement park, and we liken it to, the actual Coney Island over in New York, or we liken it to something like, Six Flags today. But it wasn't all, these kind of roses. We look at it in that kind of rose color hue, but, we see these images again. It's a Ferris wheel. It's these things. There's not much to see. We know the stories that some people have told. Ronnie Skokandich, he really looked into this ice cream shop here in the front. It's a great story, the story of Abe Dormer. He's an immigrant, and he basically creates the waffle cone, right, that everybody knows today. So there is these pockets of very interesting and very unique histories to North Bergen, but overall the park is not as glamorous as it is. The park is relatively huge. This is the main part of it, and as you can see, it covers where modern-day Bergen Line Avenue is and goes in through Hudson County Park. It's going to go along Woodcliff Avenue. There's a lot of stuff going on. Like I said, with the amusement rides, there's also restaurants, there's pool halls, there's shooting galleries, there's dance pavilions, and then there's just your kind of run-of-the-mill carnival amusements, traveling games and games that would change with the seasons and things like that. But what we don't really look at too much is that Coney Island, or Little Coney Island, is like really a pain in the butt for the town. And the people in not just North Bergen, but like Hudson County in general, wanted this thing gone. All of these articles, interestingly enough, all come from 1905, which is the year this murder is going to happen. So these all start from the minute the park opens in April of 1905. There's a petition to close the park, and the people of northern Hudson County did this petition every year, right? They tried to petition the county, they petitioned the state to shut it down. The park is not really safe, right? With the rides that are there, again, it's 1905. This is the early days of like amusement rides. So 40 people got injured on the Razzle Dazzle, meaning the whole thing collapsed and everybody got hurt. So, it's not really a safe place. There was an investigation into it in 1905, right? The war on Little Coney Island is actually run by Dr. Gowan of Grove Church down on 46th Street. He really pushes to close the park. And the reason is there is constant reports of minors, especially young girls, being served alcohol there. And the bigger problem, or to compound that problem, is going to be that you're looking at roughly on a weekend 10 to 20,000 people descending on that little intersection of Bergen Line and, 91st Street or Kennedy Boulevard. You have people going to the amusement park. You have people still going to the Guttenberg racetrack that is there. It's not really drawing, the most, upstanding citizens. There's a lot of gambling. There's gang activity. There's all-out drunkenness kind of just going on. But once these reports of minors getting involved, especially young women being taken advantage of, this is where the towns and the county and community leaders really start pushing to shut this place down. Right? Again, Little Coney Island is a plague spot. And again, drunken boys and girls. All right, he, meaning Gowan, declares pour from the evil resort of North Hudson, right, and are not molested by either town, and it goes on to the county. So the town, the county, they kind of turned a blind eye, and it's kind of easy to understand if we don't think about North Bergen today. If we think about North Bergen and Hudson County around 1905, you have to remember there's nothing up there, right? There's no racetrack section. There's no 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th Avenues. There's nobody up there. So this is kind of just like, leave it up there, leave it alone. It's, technically they thought it wasn't bothering anybody. They actually looked at it more as a Bergen County problem than a Hudson County problem. And again, Gowan, he's really the driver for try to get this park done. And he leads like a 10-year fight against Coney Island. And, he tries to see it all the way through. Now, again, this is Loretta Pfiefer. And to try to know, like, we'll get into the whole murder and everything now. So Loretta Pfiefer, she's from Manhattan. She's going to be engaged to a gentleman from Jersey City, Nicholas Mountry. So on August 4th, 1905, Mountry invites her over. He says, come on, it's Friday night. We're going to go up to Little Coney Island. So she takes the ferry over from Manhattan. They meet in Weehawken. And they take a trolley from Weehawken all the way up Bergen Line Avenue, basically to Coney Island. Now, all this information we have on what happened this night all comes from Mountry's retelling of the story. So he tells us, or he tells the investigators at the time, that they go up, and the first thing they do when they get up to Little Coney Island is they go to Nungesser's Hotel, right, which is where White Castle is today. They go to Nungesser's Hotel for refreshments. Now, 1905 speak, refreshments mean they had a couple of drinks when they were in Nungesser's. So Mountry says, we had a couple of drinks, and then we went over to Little Coney Island. He said the first thing they did was they rode the Ferris wheel, and then they went to the shooting gallery, and they enjoyed all these other kind of amusements that the park had going on. And they stayed there until it closed. Now, the weather reports tell us, now Mountry doesn't tell us this, but we look back at the Jersey Journal archives and we found the weather, and it says it was going to be fair weather and partly cloudy. So, I mean, it was a nice August day, or evening, so to say. So Mountry and Pfiefer then decide to go for a walk. Now, they walk along Kennedy Boulevard, more or less to where maybe 88th Street is, more or less along Kennedy Boulevard. And that's where the night takes this turn, like this horrific turn. Nobody could have predicted this, and nobody would have seen this coming. So they go to try to walk along, the boulevard. Again, there's nothing up there. It's quiet. They're on a date. All right, they're engaged. They're whatever. Right now, Mountry retells the story. He says that they're approached by two guys. There's really no introduction at first, but it's when they stop them, they say that they're two police officers. Now, this is where it gets interesting, because in the shoes of Mountry, he doesn't know how it's working in North Bergen. Mountry's from Jersey City. He understands that there's Jersey City police. And one thing we have to understand is that North Bergen in 1905 has no police department, right? There's not an official police department until 1907. So to go up to Little Coney Island, you would have dealt with private police officers. You would have dealt with Coney Island constables. You would have dealt with the Boulevard police, right, which were the county police, the sheriffs today. You would have also dealt with the racetrack security. So Mountry has no idea who any of these people are, and he just takes their word for it. So they say, they ask Mountry, they say, what are you doing here? Like, why are you up here? And he's identifying himself as a detective at this point, and he's threatening now to arrest Mountry. So this is all happening very fast between these two gentlemen and this couple. Now, according to Mountry, right, the officer says it's against the law to be on the boulevard at night. Now, because there's no police officer or police departments that were from then, we looked into it. We asked the North Bergen police. We said, did you ever hear of this law? And they never heard of the law. So again, going back to 1905 standards, right, Mountry just has to take these guys' word for it. So there comes up the topic of, that Mountry's going to the county jail, and, he's going to get locked up, and this poor girl's going to have to stay here and figure out her way all the way home, as if North Bergen is Mars and she has to get back. But it's 1905. So they say, give us $5. Okay, give us $5 and we'll let you go. Now, Mountry, they're out all night. He spends all his money. He has $2 in his wallet. Okay, he's got $2. So Mountry tries to bargain with them. And as this bargaining is going on, Loretta's starting to get a little anxious. She's getting more and more nervous. She's fidgeting. She's jittery. So the men are like, no, we want the $5. We need the $5 bribe. That's the only way you're getting out of this. So Pfiefer then says, here, take my watch. She has his watch. She says, take my watch and go back to the hotel and try to sell it. So the cops are like, or the cops, let me put that in quotations, right? The two people on the boulevard, they're like, okay, that's fine. That could happen. But when they try to leave, they grab Loretta. And they're like, listen, there's no way we're letting both of you go. Only one of you are going to go. So Mountry runs back because he's not going to send Loretta into a bar late at night by herself trying to sell a watch, right? He then goes and leaves her with these two guys. So he goes and he pawns the watch, right? The agreement is that when he pawns it, he's going to come back, and that's it. They're going to exchange the money, and everybody goes home happy. However, when he gets back to that spot, there's nobody there, right? He has the money. He's looking around, and there's nothing. There's nobody there. There's no sign of anybody. And again, there's no one he can really ask, considering that there's no homes up there. There's nothing there at this point. So he's there. Again, it's about 11 o'clock at night, so it's late. It's late. There's no lights on the boulevard. There's definitely no cars driving after that time, But he starts searching the area, right? He's looking for Loretta. He's looking for any sign of police officers. And he actually just starts to panic now, and he runs back to Nungesser's, right? And he tells them what happened. And one of the gentlemen that work at the hotel, he comes out. He brings 2 search dogs with him, or just 2 dogs in general. And they start searching that general area between Kennedy Boulevard and Bergline Avenue. Now, he searches all night, right? He tells the police he leaves around 8 o'clock in the morning because he has to go to work. Now, he's a delivery driver for a bakery. So he goes, I got to go to work. She must have just went home. So he assumes she's gone home, and he's just going to go to work, right? She was with 2 police officers. He's assuming maybe they got tired of waiting for him, and everybody went home regardless, right? So Mountry's not going to know what happens until his shift is over, right? And again, while Mountry searched for her, this is where it gets ugly. She's laying lifeless at the home of a former police chief, right? By the name of Patrick Sullivan, which is at the corner of 81st Street and Bergline Avenue, right? That's today. That would have been, their home would have been where Harry's Bar and Grill is. So it's Harry's Food and Drink, excuse me. The interesting thing about this is that that's several blocks from where Mountry last saw Pfiefer. So, there is some interesting stuff going on here. Now, I have this map, right? It's a little rough. Okay, the blue dot is going to represent Nungesser Hotel. And then we got the red dot. That's going to be the last place he sees Loretta Pfiefer alive. This green dot all the way down there, that represents the Sullivan home. That blacked out area here, right? The area we know is the racetrack, even though this map calls it Hudson Heights for some reason, right? That area where it's blacked out, there would have been a huge horse racing track there, right? So that means these gentlemen that had Loretta Pfiefer either cut across the racetrack and dropped her off at Sullivan's home knowing that Sullivan was the former police chief, or Loretta Pfiefer just, ironically just landed at the home of the former police chief. Okay, so that just shows that these gentlemen that were behind this case must have known what was going on, or knew where they were. Okay, regardless, Evelyn Sullivan, the daughter of the former police chief, she's up late at night. She has a newborn daughter. She's up trying to kind of get her to bed. It's 3 o'clock in the morning, and she hears kind of like a light whimpering outside of her door. So she opens the door, and there's Loretta Pfiefer just laying on the stairs, kind of like panic attack mode, can't breathe, that whole look of shock on her face and all that. She now calls an ambulance and Dr. Ephraim Hellstern. Okay, now Hellstern is going to be that yellow dot on the map. He doesn't live too far, but at 3 o'clock in the morning, it's far. Okay, I mean, I don't know if anybody wants to try to walk at 3 o'clock in the morning from Palisade Plaza to 81st Street, but tell me how it goes. What makes this even more of a disaster for Loretta Pfiefer is that the ambulance driver who was called in, a gentleman by the name of William Tettelbaum, he dies in the process. He has a heart attack while trying to hook the horses up to the ambulance. So there's a delay in the ambulance getting there once Hellstern gets there. So like this is a perfect storm of disasterness for this poor woman. Now, as she's there, right? Sullivan is daughter of the former police chief, and again, by former police chief, there is a police force in North Bergen, but they're not called the North Bergen Police Department, right? They're called the Rounders, and there's a great picture of the caps that they have coming up in the presentation. But they're just kind of like a police force that kind of wanders around town. They're not paid by the town. They're nothing. They're just kind of an informal police force. But being someone in the police family, she starts asking Loretta Pfiefer what happened, and she starts asking what's going on. So Pfiefer tells them that the attackers, one man was short and stout and had a black mustache, right? She then explains that he wore a black coat, right? Light gray trousers. And that's just of the one man. Unfortunately, she couldn't describe the other man. She said she didn't get a good look at him. She was struggling to talk, and Sullivan was trying to kind of calm her down. And then, as Hellstern starts working on her, and she dies right there on her couch, right in the family living room. So it's a very heartbreaking story. Right. What happens next is this story spreads nationwide. Right. We found evidence of this story, obviously, in local papers like the Jersey Journal, the New York Times, the Sun, major New York media outlets. However, as we searched, we started seeing like the Topeka Times, Chicago Times, right? It made its way all the way to San Francisco, right? This thing was nationwide news. But back to the case, right? Mountry finishes his work, right? The boyfriend, the fiance, he finishes his day, and then he goes to Manhattan, and he goes to Loretta's home at 59 Grove Street. It's in Manhattan. It's still there, her home. And her father says to him, she never came home last night, So now Mountry is kind of freaking out again, and he comes back to Jersey, and he reports what happens to the Hoboken police. He takes the ferry back to Hoboken, goes right to the first police station. Okay. It's not until Jersey City police are notified of what happened that they show up at his house and arrest him. They start interrogating him. And it seemed like he could have caused, they think he did it, right? They think he left for Loretta Pfiefer. Obviously, he's the last person with her, last person to see her alive, in their opinion, right? They don't really buy his story that there's these dudes, But as the investigation goes on, James Nolan, who will later become mayor in North Bergen, tells the Jersey City police that there was a deathbed, identification by Loretta Pfiefer, and her identification of that short, stout guy with the mustache fits identical to how Mountry describes the one man. So Mountry, now all the suspicion is taken off of him, and again, it's very clear that Mountry is very upset. He's definitely taken aside. As he's with the Jersey City police, he's crying. So Nolan kind of gives him like a little bit of an alibi, and then that alibi is cemented because Henry Nungesser, the owner of Nungesser Hotel, actually corroborates the whole story. He goes, I remember this guy coming in, I remember him selling the watch, you know, and then I remember him coming back and asking for help to find his, you know, girlfriend. So Mountry, it's clearly not Mountry who kills Loretta Pfiefer, right? So the search for these guys comes fast, right? And it comes down hard. So what happens is James Nolan, he's in charge of the kind of safety of North Bergen at the time. He's one of like the town commissioners. He later becomes the first chief of police. He's like really like, we got to figure out what's going on, like, because this is horrible look for us. So he gets the entire county. They're investigating who kills Loretta. So the Hudson County sheriffs, right, or the Boulevard Police as they're called, they're increasing patrols in and around Little Coney Island, right? James Nolan does something to catch the culprits. I think it's very interesting. He sets up, and again, this might be the first undercover operation the police do in North Bergen. He sets up cops to go to Little Coney Island on pretend dates and kind of walk around and put themselves in weird positions where they're walking alone by themselves. You know, he's trying to get these guys to come out and go after his guys. So I think that's a really interesting thing that they tried to do. The dragnet, again, orchestrated by the police departments, yielded nothing, right? They could not find anything. And again, North Bergen police are involved, the Hudson County police are involved, the Boulevard police, excuse me, right? Even they call in police forces from neighboring towns, right? At the time, it would have been called Garwood, which is Fairview and Cliffside Park, right? They're starting to come down, right? Hoboken police are involved, Jersey City police are involved, Weehawken and West New York, all these towns are involved because they want to figure out who this is because they're afraid of this happening again. So again, because that there's no reason to hold Mountry's released, and everybody's keeping an eye out for these guys. The residents, though, of Hudson County, right, they are now starting to really turn on Little Coney Island. Because of its closure, calls for the closure of this place start to get louder and louder every day. It's no longer just Dr. Gowan of the park. It's a couple other people. Let me close out this thing with the share here. Let me see what's going on here. So again, yeah. So right, Little Coney Island now everybody kind of sees the mask is pulled off, and everybody's trying to really see how bad it is now. It's becoming more and more clear, more and more evident that the people going up there they're not from the area, they're not from Hudson County, they're not from North Bergen, they're not from the surrounding towns. That these are all out-of-towners coming in. They're all causing all these problems. So articles start to get produced about how bad it is, right? The one I have, it's really cool. It says, it is a den of vice, a stain on the town, right? And, you know, they start calling it this dangerous place, right? It's dangerous by nature, right? It's horrible. Don't go there. Another article, and again, this just shows how in 1905, they had no chill in 1905. One article suggests that if you're going to bring a date there, carry a shotgun with you, right? That's how dangerous that people viewed this park, that they suggested you bring a weapon on your date. Now, again, the Hudson County prosecutor is now in charge of the case at this point, right? It's believed by several of the investigators that the men who committed the crime were from Hoboken, right? They're starting to try to narrow down where these guys are from, and they're like, all right, we got it from good source that we think these dudes are from Hoboken. And the source is a trolley conductor by the name of Emil Hollander, right? Hollander, you know, he has these three guys on the train, and it's late, and they're kind of shooting the breeze with each other, and he could overhear their whole conversation. And he goes and he hears them say something, and it just sticks with him. And they say, we ought to have taken the $2 that guy offered us, right? Now, Hollander, the $2 these guys got, he associates it right away with the whole Loretta Pfiefer murder and Mountry giving him $2. And again, it's Hudson County in 1905, right? There's not a lot of people here, right? This story spreads fast. The story is in the newspaper. Mountry's stories in the newspaper. The $2 is not some type of evidence that's being hidden. That's very well known. So Hollander then tells the police what's going on. Again, there's still no suspects, right? There's no signs of an arrest being made. This thing looks like it's cold and they're not going to catch it. 9 days are gone, right? Loretta Pfiefer's dead 9 days now. It's August 14th, right? And it's suspected that the bogus police officers are going to strike again. However, they're in a different part of North Bergen at this point. They are going to attack a woman, or try to attack a woman by the name of Mary Paisley. She's on her way to a drugstore down in Six Corners. And when she's approached by four men, demanding money, or they're going to arrest her. Okay. So it's the same MO as Loretta Pfiefer's case. However, now they're in a different section of town. Okay. This woman now rushes to the drugstore, right? And, you know, the guy there, the druggist, Arnold Renson, he like meets the guys at the door. He definitely knows something is going on. And he demands to see their badges. He says, the guys say to him, "We're the police officers." And he says, "Well, show me a badge," right? And they can't produce a badge. So Renson locks the door, and he thinks these guys are bogus, phony, and he now phones, you know, town hall. He's like, "You need to get somebody over here. These guys are pretending to be cops down here." He doesn't wait for the police. He checks these guys are gone, and he actually walks Miss Paisley to town hall. Now, that doesn't, remember, it's 1905. Town hall on Kennedy Boulevard is not built yet. Town hall would have been on Tunnelly Avenue near 51st Street. So it was a little shorter of a walk. Now, again, when we look at it, it's, you know, it's fun for the sake of discussion to say they're related, but it is hard to think they are related. Chief Nolan definitely felt they were related, right? Nolan was a firm believer that these things were related because after this, they never happen again, right? There's no more instances of people pretending to be fake police after this. Again, it could be because maybe there's too much heat on Coney Island now. There's more police forces up there, right? There's outcry from the community. So maybe these guys took their $5 and ran when they realized that they killed somebody. So, you know, who knows? But again, here we are, guys, right? It's 115 years later. We have no idea who did this. We had no idea it even happened. Reports from August will tell us that Loretta Pfiefer was not harmed by these two guys at all. It turns out, though, her cause of death, and this is, I love old records like this, her literal cause of death on her death certificate says fright. You know, and when we look at who Loretta Pfiefer is, she's a 19-year-old girl, but she had heart issues her whole life. So they kind of chalk up her death to being literally scared to death, right? They say Loretta died from being scared. You know, maybe these two guys didn't know what was going on. They freaked out, and they took her to the Sullivan home knowing somebody would take care of her, right? Again, it shows that they knew the area, but again, it doesn't tell us much else about them. After this, the Women's Club of Hoboken, they take the charge, and they're like, "Listen, we're getting rid of this place." They call they said it's vile, it's corrupting the county, you know. Then we see this growth in population in North Bergen, right? And just for number purposes, in 1910 and again in 1900, there's about 9,000 people in North Bergen, right? By 1910, there's 15,000 people. That's 6,000 more people, and most of them are starting to move into the area that we know as Woodcliff today, right? Because of this population boom in Woodcliff, right? There's an actual drive to get Woodcliff to become its own town, right? And their main gripe with North Bergen is going to be that they let Coney Island and they let the racetrack do whatever they want, and that they want to be their own town and they want to crush these places. So North Bergen's like, all right, listen, we can't afford to lose part of town. So we're going to just crack down on these places. They crack down on the racetrack. The state actually shuts down the racetrack, right? And then 1910, there's a huge fire, burns down most of Little Coney Island, and they never really recoup. They never really rebuild. Again, I think it's because of the outcry of the people of the area. I think it's because of the fact that they were shut down, they were destroyed. The Loretta Pfiefer kind of falls into the cracks of history then, right? We looked into it and we found that Loretta Pfiefer is buried in Calvary Cemetery over in New York, and I called them and they had no idea. They couldn't find where she was, right? So again, I told them the story. They were very touched that somebody did the research, but stuff falls in, to the backseat of history, which is unfortunate. And again, it's unfortunate because the North Bergen police blotters don't go back this far. They go back to 1907. They don't go back to 1905. So we really don't have any more information or insight from these guys. I called Jersey City and police department, I was on hold for an hour and a half waiting to talk to somebody. So, it's unfortunate we don't know who killed Loretta Pfiefer. There's no telling who did it. But we do know that, she dies alone, on Bergline Avenue and 81st Street, right? She dies in a stranger's home. Who knows, right? But it is important for us as, historians and people who want to preserve the town's history, to make sure we look at all aspects of the town's history, especially in relation to places like Little Coney Island, right? We look at it, we miss it, even though none of us went to it. But we do have to know that there was the dark side to this place as well. That is all I have for you guys. Thank you for stopping by. If you have any questions, you can fire them away in the chat. I'll be more than happy to help you or answer any questions. It could be about this Loretta Pfiefer case. It could be about anything in general. I'm an open book for you guys. If you need anything, you let me know. Okay, so here we go. All right, let's see. So, was the fire suspicious? No, the fire was pretty straightforward. They know it was some type of just a kerosene fire. It got out of control, and that was it. There was nothing like insurance fraud or anything like that. The fire just happens, and then that's the end of that. There is some suspicion, though, that the fire companies in the area really delayed their response to go to the fire because they knew that people didn't want to park there anymore, and they figure just let it go, let the fire burn it out, and that was the way they would get rid of it. But again, there was really nothing suspicious about the fire at all. All right, any other questions? So, okay, Loretta's her father was called, and he had to go to Jersey City to identify the body. But other than that, that happened about a day later. So it wasn't until the Jersey City police figured out who she was once Mountry reported the case and everything. But yeah, he was involved. Only her father was around. The mother had passed away earlier. But Loretta's father had to go. No siblings at all. It was just Loretta, which is unfortunate because, when we do our research here, we try to find people that may have more information, family stories or whatnot. But, in this case, it was unfortunate. No siblings. And, the father, was on his own with her. So, yeah, no family. It is. It's a sad story, and it's a beautiful day. It's a huge bummer to put on a nice Wednesday evening, but these are the stories that we really focus on sometimes, or we don't focus enough on. It's interesting to see. It's interesting to put together the full picture of the park. We're looking more into the park now to put together a fuller history, especially with the pushback from Dr. Gowan. He really was he was out to get this place. He felt, this was, and again, maybe it was his religious calling, right? And again, Grove Church for, pretty much since its existence, I think it's older than the town actually, was always really the centerpiece of town. And they really drove a lot of what happened. You had some of the biggest names in town be members of that church. So, it's only fitting that a pushback came out of that part of town, And it's ironic because when you think about it, Dr. Gow and Grove Church, they didn't really have a problem with a park even closer to their house, or closer to their neighborhood. There you don't see the pushback to Columbia Park or Schutzen Park, or even Floral Park, which was down on 22nd Street. They never really pushed back against those places, because they were run in a much more kind of proper manner, and Little Coney Island was essentially the Wild West in some sense. All right. Well, if you guys have nothing else for me, just to give you a little heads up of what the Historical Society has planned. For those of you who don't know me, I'm also a teacher in North Bergen High School, a history teacher, clearly, right? No, nobody would have thought I was a math teacher, right? But history teacher, and we're partnering, the Historical Society is going to be working with the history department in the high school and the STEM department, the science department. We are actually going to be rebuilding or building from the floor up a 1920s auto Redbug, which was an electric vehicle that was built down on Liberty Avenue in North Bergen during the 1920s. So we have an article coming out next month that's going to highlight, what we're doing, how we're doing it, where we're doing it. Again, if anybody has any interest in helping out, just shoot us an email. Gladly help you out, or we would appreciate any help whatsoever. It's me and some high school kids building a car. So, it should be fun. And I'm sorry, Damien, I just saw it said, am I aware of the 1897 Galecki painting? Yes, yeah, I am, with the carousel outside of it. Yeah, it does depict part of Coney Island. However, when you look at some of the older insurance maps, there's definitely two sides to Bergen Line Avenue there. And, in the background of that painting, there is a wall, and there's, some people sitting on top of it where they look over. It's supposed to be looking at the racetrack. There was a carousel on that side of Bergen Line Avenue. Also, it was also then knocked down or replaced by a skating rink around 1904, 1905, maybe. So, I mean, I think that painting actually shows more just the Guttenberg racetrack, not so much Little Coney Island. All right. All right, guys. Well, listen, thanks for hanging out with me for a little bit. I'm glad. I hope you enjoyed. I hope we took something away from this. Like I said, we got some big things coming up in September for the school year with the high school kids building a small electric car. You'll see me driving it down Bergen Line Avenue probably if you're in the area. But yeah, stay in touch. You can always keep an eye on us on Facebook. You can follow us on the North Bergen Historical Society at blogspot.com. Again, thanks for everybody for coming in, and enjoy the rest of your summers, guys. Have a great night.